What is up, everybody? I am Get Flanked, and welcome to part 2 of how to get Siege back on track. This is a series of 3 videos that focuses on improving the Siege experience for new players. Part 1 is linked in the top right hand corner of the screen right now, and part 3 will be linked as soon as it is live. The goal of this series is to provide some ideas that will help make the game more accessible to a wider group of players. In part 1, I talked about some ideas for improving the tutorials and situations within Siege to help brand new players be better prepared for their first multiplayer matches. And while more educational resources for new players will help grow the game, there is no substitute for actual gameplay when it comes to getting new players hooked on Siege. With that in mind, we're going to take a look at a newcomer quick match casual game modes today, and I'll be making the case for why we need a new permanent game mode in Siege. If you took 100 people who tried out Siege on a free weekend and then never played the game again and asked them why they quit, what do you think the most common answer would be? You would be very likely to get several different answers from the players, but I would be willing to bet that the vast majority of answers would boil down to two things. Either the game was too boring or the game was too hard. Now, me personally, when I play a new multiplayer game, I fully expect it to be hard at first. What I don't expect is to spend 80% of my time in that game spectating cameras or a teammate because I'm dead. Think about it this way. Let's say you took someone who had never played Call of Duty and put them in a game of team deathmatch, and they get 10 kills and die 20 times. They would be very likely to walk away saying that that game was hard, but not necessarily that it was boring. They spent probably 95% of the time alive and in control of their character. They had 10 positive interactions and gunfights. They may have even gotten a kill streak to call in. In Siege, they are likely to spend the vast majority of that first match dead. Now, it's not exactly fair to compare a respawn game mode like Team Deathmatch to Siege. So instead, let's compare Siege to other non-respawn game modes in other popular titles. In preparation for this video, I spent 1 hour on stream playing casual Siege, Valorant Unranked, and Call of Duty Search and Destroy. After playing, I collected the following stats from the VOD: total rounds played, total gunfights, and total time alive. On the screen now, you are seeing the results. You don't have to look at these numbers long before it becomes clear that there is a significant disparity between the amount of playtime and interactions in Siege compared to the other two games. In the same amount of time between all three games, I played almost 3 times as many rounds in Valorant and COD than I did in Siege. I also had 3 times the number of gunfights and significantly more total time alive as well. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is a great sample size or that my experience is exactly the same as what a new player's would be, but does anything here really surprise you? I think we knew all along that you spend more time dead in Siege than you do in the other games. Still, it does kind of punch you in the face when you look at the numbers and see how significant it is. I'll be blunt. I firmly believe that the number one reason that new players quit Siege is because of the high amount of downtime that they experience in games as a beginner. Now, if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you made it through this awkward beginning phase of the game and have gotten hooked at some point. I've talked about this before, but I believe there are things that I call Siege moments, where something happens in the game that is just so beautiful that it hooks you. It could be a clutch in overtime. It could be a kill with a gadget. For me, it was a kill while rappelling upside down, and I still remember it. At that moment, the game just clicked for me, and I have been hooked ever since. It didn't mean I was good all of a sudden, but I was deep enough in love that I was willing to deal with the punishment in search of that feeling again. We need to find a way to deliver that Siege moment to new players earlier in their playtime and more consistently. And I believe the best way to do that is to create a new game mode in Siege. This new game mode should be designed to get those stats that I compared earlier closer to those Valorant and COD numbers while still feeling like Siege. If a new player spends their first 20 hours playing this game mode, it should still feel natural hopping into Unranked and not feeling like they're playing a completely different game. To accomplish this is extremely challenging, but it's not impossible. All right, now this is the part where I'm supposed to introduce you to Speed Siege, but I want to make one thing clear. I don't think that Speed Siege, in the exact way that I'm about to describe, is the answer in the game mode we are searching for. This is a mode that I brainstormed and tested a couple times without any developer tools and only using the custom game options. My fear is that by showing you this extremely unpolished and rough idea, that it will muddy the water of the larger concept, which is changing the way that new players experience Siege. A concept that I think most of us can agree on. With that said, I do think that Speed Siege does a great job of solving some of these downtime issues that plagues Siege for new players while still feeling like Siege, and has some good aspects that could be built on. So here we go. Speed Siege is the bomb game mode that you're familiar with in Siege, but with a 35-second prep phase and a 2-minute round time. Now, in order to make a 2-minute round time in Siege work for both defenders and attackers, some changes have to be made to how the attackers spawn and how the defenders can spend prep phase. And I'm going to show you the defender side right now. And to keep things simple, we're only talking about the aviator objective here on Villa. This is the objective that I've used to try it out a couple of different times, and I've set up parameters that seem to work okay. So here's the major difference for defenders in the prep phase with Speed Siege. You can't go past certain areas on the map. So with aviator here, you can't move past this arch right here out this way. Okay, you can't move past this point towards master bedroom on this arch. Now over here on this side of the map, you couldn't move past this point. Now this is only during the prep phase. That's important to know. So if I was, if I had the tools, I would put like a red wall here during the prep phase. After prep phase is over, the red wall removed, and then you as a defender can go wherever you want. Now, as far as like towards study, all this over here is fair game. And you can go downstairs as well. But downstairs, you can't go past the arches, which are right here, this set of arches. And then also the arches that are over here towards the red stairs. And that is the arch right there. So again, imagine red walls right there. And again, only during prep phase. So that's the major difference. You can still reinforce, you can still prep windows, anything that you can do within that area, you're still allowed to do during that prep phase. Now, let's go over to the attackers. Okay, so now we're going to explain the rules on the attacking side. And this is where I really need you to use your imagination a little bit. The 2-minute round timer puts a ton of pressure on the attackers and actually makes it extremely difficult on the attacking team under the normal rules of Siege. So in order to compensate for this, in Speed Siege, attackers will have the option to spawn inside of the map at one point. They still have the option to spawn outside the map in all of the normal spawns outside, but there's one additional spawn point inside of the map. In this circumstance, it would be somewhere in this general area. The attackers could choose to spawn over here. Okay, if they do so, their drone still spawns over here and they can drone during the prep phase. Nothing changes as far as that goes, but once the prep phase ends, they will appear right here. Okay, that is why the defenders have the restrictions on where they can go throughout the map, because you can't let defenders just push right into this area and just kill them as soon as they spawn in. There has to be some separation between the two sides or this doesn't work. Now, one thing that I'm realizing I forgot to explain as I'm editing this is that as you watch the background gameplay of me trying this mode out in custom games, you're going to notice that the way that it works is there's a 15-second prep phase, and then the rounds are actually 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. That first 20 seconds of those rounds is actually still prep phase. That's the only way I could work it out so that you can allow attackers to actually spawn in and then get up to the master bedroom spawn before the timer hits 2 minutes. That way they're there when the round actually starts. Okay, obviously I can't make people spawn inside, and this was the only way I could work it out with the tools that I have available. So as you're watching the background gameplay footage, that first 15 seconds is the prep phase, and then the next 20 seconds is still the prep phase, and then the round actually starts when that timer hits 2 minutes. Now, one of the most common things that I hear about this is like, well, okay, as a defender, I'm just going to sit on these doors and basically prevent people, from coming out. I'm just going to, basically spawn trap is what it comes down to. And that's definitely a concern. But I think we may be okay over here, because think about how many different routes I have to get out from right here. So if I spawn right here, I can go down Astro Stairs. Once I'm down Astro Stairs, I mean, I can go anywhere. I can go down to basement. I can go through the library. I've got a lot of different options. Okay, if I make it to the basement, I mean, really, I can be completely under the radar, and I've got a ton of options there. Obviously, I can also go through Trophy this way. I can drop down Skylight. I can go over this way. and push out here. I mean, I have to worry about people, obviously, but you know, there's what I'm saying is there's a lot of different possibilities. That's not even counting the hatches. You know, there's obviously a hatch in here that I could drop. I think there's enough possibilities on where you can go and enough separation between the two sides that this can work. And honestly, this changes everything. Okay, the reason this changes everything is because defenders now have to are under threat immediately, and that's not really the case normally. Okay, so knowing that attackers can spawn right here, defenders have to be prepared for that. You know, if you let 5 defenders spawn there and get access to this point of the map alive, they're going to win. Like they should win every time. Okay, but so as a defender, you can't just, you know, all anchor or anything. You have to kind of prep for this and be prepared for this, and you know, kind of be wary of them, you know, rushing from inside of the map. And what that does is it actually makes the outside spawn points much safer from spawn peaks, because number one, if you think about it, a defender can only spawn peek on this side of the map. Okay, so any spawn point over this way would be completely safe. It limits a possible number of spawn peaks. And it also spreads the defenders out so that they can't be concentrated. It just, from my experience playing this game mode, it feels much safer entering the map, if that makes sense, because the defenders are more spread out and they don't have the freedom of complete map control right from the get-go. All right, for the remainder of this video, in the background, you're going to be seeing actual gameplay of whenever I tried this speed siege concept out. Anytime you see me spawn in at Fountain and then rappel up to Master during the prep phase, that's me imitating what that Master bedroom spawn point would be like as an attacker. Now, of course, I went back and collected data from 1 hour worth of speed siege as well. So let's plug that in and compare it to what we looked at before. In 1 hour of Speed Siege, I played 22 rounds, had 33 gunfights, and spent 21 minutes and 46 seconds alive. That is nearly twice as many rounds played and gunfights than I experienced in the same amount of time in casual. 21 minutes and 46 seconds alive is also a significant increase over casual and puts us right in line with COD and Valorant. But the most encouraging statistic of all of this is the average time alive per round. By my math, the average time I was alive in a round of casual was 1 minute and 5 seconds, and the average for Speed Siege was 59 seconds. That means that even though each round of Speed Siege was a whole 1 minute and 35 seconds shorter, I stayed alive for roughly the same amount of time in those rounds. And that is a great sign. What that means to me is that we are taking all of the action that happens in a round of Siege and compressing it into a shorter time frame. This means less potential downtime for new players, and more importantly, it means that they will be learning the game at a much faster rate. Now listen, I understand why the newcomer and casual match rounds are longer than ranked and unranked. New players need more time as an attacker to get inside the map. But I think the longer rounds are actually harming new players more than helping them. The way that new players learn this game isn't by having more time to sit outside the map or on a roof. The way that we all learned this game was through repetition, and longer rounds means less repetition. Think about it. If a new player plays twice as many rounds in Speed Siege than they would in that same amount of time in newcomer or casual, that's going to be twice as many opportunities they have to practice the fundamentals of Siege, to use their operator's unique gadget and get comfortable with it, to learn the map that they're playing on. That's going to be twice as many opportunities for them to have their Siege moment. And over the course of, say, their first 20 hours, this is significant. Now, I've made a big deal out of stats and time alive in this video without really mentioning that the quality of that time you spend alive in game is the most important stat of all. So is Speed Siege actually fun to play? I don't think I can honestly tell you. I'm so invested in this concept and I've been thinking about it for so long that I can't really trust myself to not be biased. But in all honesty, my opinion isn't really what's important. Don't take this the wrong way, but your opinion, if you're watching this video, probably isn't the one that's most important either. Taking a player that has 2,000 hours played in Siege and throwing them into Speed Siege is shocking. The pace of the rounds are definitely an adjustment and it feels weird at first. But if you take an average gamer that has never played Siege and you give them an hour in Newcomer and an hour in Speed Siege, I'm willing to bet that the player enjoys their time in Speed Siege more. All right, guys, that's going to do it for part 2. of how to get Siege back on track. Again, make sure you check out part 1. It's linked up in the top right hand corner, and part 3 will be linked there as soon as it is live. Thank you so much for the support and the feedback on these videos. It means the world. If you enjoyed this, please make sure that you like and subscribe, and I'll have more coming your way here soon.